Welcome to Her Upper Hand, a series exploring themes and journeys around female gambling harm.
Your brain works.
It's weird, isn't it? I was talking to Deb earlier on. I'm so different. I hated being different as a kid. I hated it.
You'll hear from 6 women, each affected in different but connected ways by gambling.
I started doing performance poetry. That was the one thing that gave me a bigger adrenaline rush than gambling ever did.
Over the course of 6 weeks, they've been learning about podcasting, and this series is the culmination of all that work.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. Thank you all for sharing. Thank you very much for sharing.
In each episode, you'll hear one woman harness the power of audio to explore these themes in her own words.
This is Her Upper Hand. Her Upper Hand. Real talk about women's experiences of gambling.
This is Wiktoria.
A quick message for our listeners. In this series, you'll hear from women who have been affected by gambling, either personally or through people they care about. These episodes hold space for joy, resilience, and hope. But we'll also talk openly about the emotional impact these experiences can have. Please take care whilst listening. You're welcome to pause, skip, or return whenever it feels right. My name is Wiktoria. This is a fictional story told through the eyes of a child in the space between raised voices. This is not about blame, it is about what children carry when adults carry too much. This is fiction, or perhaps an inquiry into gravity. We inhabited a house governed by weather, though not the kind within the stars. Ours entered through the front door, wearing a familiar face. Pressure systems disguised as affection, forecasts carried in posture, barometers disguised as breath. Most children understand, instinctively, that provision is a form of orbit. There is always a figure who rises before the morning has fully articulated itself, stepping into the machinery of hours, so the rest may remain held. Their hands carry the fine inscriptions of repetition, microfractures of labour, creases where effort has settled permanently into skin. However they appear, tailored, uniformed, perfumed with fatigue, they arrive home bearing the ache of consistency. And somewhere, in a calibrated room of immaculate light, another arithmetic shimmered into view, an alternative theorem. What if the equation is not fixed? What if gravity can be negotiated? There are lives that begin already leaning, floors that are not entirely level, foundations poured at a quiet angle. Some inherit altitude as casually as surname. Others inherit incline, a subtle but persistent tilt that turns effort into endurance. You can labour against the slope for years and remain geographically unchanged. And when devotion does not convert into elevation, when diligence fails to lift the ceiling, when love expressed through labour still leaves the room waiting, the promise of acceleration begins to glow. It does not introduce itself as danger. It presents as correction, as leverage, as intervention, a system within the system, whispering, what if chance could do what wages have not? What if imbalance is not destiny, but design, and design can be outmaneuvered? It did not feel like indulgence. It felt like reclamation. Like inserting a hand into the hidden cogs of inequity and forcing symmetry, like bending probability until it confessed. Because when you love people, you begin searching, for shortcuts to mercy, and sometimes the brightest doors open the fastest. There was a kitchen that contained more than porcelain. Sounds settled there in geological layers. Disputes pressed into tile, memory threaded through grout. Two figures positioned at opposite ends of the same small continent. One fortifying, one dismantling, and a child, rotating sugar through amber liquid, attempting to dissolve what exceeded comprehension. Laughter surfaced, capable of leaving a mark. A remark about restraint entered the room dressed as practicality. It rested briefly on the table's surface before embedding itself elsewhere. Paper lay stacked and squared, edges aligned, numbers contained. I did not understand what had been altered, only that the atmosphere had recalibrated. Something imperceptible had shifted its mass. It was neither announced nor examined. It simply condensed, fine as breath against glass, on a window that did not open. I held my cup with unnecessary precision, as the warmth itself might testify. Silence. The structural kind. The kind that shifts alignment somewhere beneath the surface. No one outlined the design. No diagrams were offered, only fragments, half-sentences, dropped like loose screws onto the table. I began to understand that currency possesses temperament. That it can arrive expansive, then retreat without ceremony. That stability is often theatrical. A facade rehearsed convincingly, until it isn't. Security, I learned, can dissipate without spectacle. No smoke, no siren, only absence. Scarcity reconfigures imagination. It tightens the aperture, reduces horizon to keyhole, and soon you're leaning towards the narrow light, convinced that somewhere beyond it exists a faster dawn. There were evenings that left a metallic trace on the tongue, while shirts hovered upstairs like truce flags, awaiting morning in a house increasingly abstract. Below, another curriculum assembled itself, a Cork East free, with liturgical exhaustion, garnet liquid tilted into crystal, as though disclosing something too dense for speech. The room's altered weight as dusk thickened. A sentence began and dissolved mid-air. It hovered and finished, yet fully understood. Absence has a texture. It carries fluorescence, a low electrical hymn. The suggestion of numbers moving elsewhere. The glass replenished itself without ceremony. I studied its tide, advancing, retreating, a private coastline forming on polished wood. Above, I aligned graphite into parallels. Measured margins practiced symmetry. Below, language loosened its collar. There are disputes that do not require nouns, only atmosphere sharpened to a fine and visible edge. I learned early that silence can be tactical, that certain subjects enter a room unannounced and take their seat at the centre of the table. I was ushered upstairs, with tomorrow folded neatly in expectation, while the evening's unrest stitched itself delicately into the lining of my sleep. There are rooms in every town, with their windows obscured, light calibrated, to resemble revelation. Inside, figures gather beneath suspended screens, where numbers rehearse the theatre of promise. Time loosens its structure there, minutes unhook themselves from consequence. Outside, children drift through sleep beneath ceilings quietly contingent. I pass these rooms now, and something in my pulse falters, a small arithmetic error beneath the ribs. Young faces, not yet fully assembled, speak of probability with devotional fluency. Forecast as scripture, odds as omen. They laugh. It's fun, isn't it? The word free moves easily between them, weightless, unexamined. I study it, as one might study a contract written in disappearing ink. I have learned that illumination is rarely neutral. I have learned that promise is often preloaded with invoice. And I wonder not loudly what architecture must adjust elsewhere to keep that light so unwavering. I do not participate, and yet probability circulates within me like a second pulse. I recoil from brightness that arrives too suddenly, from abundance that announces itself with theatrical certainty. Multiplication, when advertised, feels suspect. I have come to associate safety with repetition, with the unglamorous discipline of sameness. Predictability, that most unfashionable virtue, appears to me almost decadent. When I pass certain illuminated thresholds, their glow immaculate, unwavering, I feel an ancestral flicker beneath the sternum. The light is persuasive. It flatters the pavement. It promises correction, but illumination is rarely impartial. It casts as much as it reveals. I find myself wondering, what must contract elsewhere for that fluorescence to remain so composed? How many small domestic climates quickly recalibrate? How many ceilings hold their breaths? How many young minds absorb the lesson that security is atmospheric, that stability is negotiable, that hope can be itemized? Because somewhere, steam gathers against tiled walls and conversations thicken with invisible calculus. Somewhere, conviction leans forward, certain that tonight will rebalance the scale. And somewhere, a child is learning that prosperity behaves like weather, arriving radiant, departing without apology. No one translates compulsion for a child. They translate absence. They translate postponement. They translate why, suddenly, this week requires restraint. They do not diagram gravity. They do not confess that some forces feel larger than intention. Years later, I still study the sky before entering a room. I still mistrust sudden brightness, because in that house, wealth was weather, security was seasonal, and gravity was never neutral.
This episode was created by Wiktoria.
Before we go, we wanted to recognise that some of the content from today's episode may have resonated with some of you. If any part of the conversation felt a bit too familiar or brought up some difficult feelings, especially around gambling harm, whether it's affecting you directly or someone you care about, please know that you don't have to face this alone. There are free, confidential services out there to help support you. If you feel that you are in a crisis, please contact the National Gambling Helpline on 0808 8020 133 or the Samaritans on 116 123. Both services operate a 24-hour, 7 days a week helpline. You can also find more information and support through the Bet No More website. That's Bet No, as in KNOW, moreuk.org.
Her Upper Hand was the product of a 6-week course by Greater Govanhill Magazine, facilitated by Eve Livingston and Flora Zajicek. The podcast producer was Flora Zajicek. The project was funded by Gamble Aware and published by The Big Light. To find out more, visit the Greater Govanhill website.